Hi, welcome back to Science 1206, the Weather Dynamics Unit. I'm Ms. Ledwell, and in this lesson, we'll talk about air masses. Let's get started. An air mass is a very large mass of air with nearly uniform properties of temperature, pressure, and humidity. Air masses often form over tropical regions or polar regions. They tend to pick up the humidity and temperature characteristics from the land or water over which they form. In North America, there are 5 air masses that tend to affect North American weather systems. These include the maritime polar, continental polar, maritime tropical, continental tropical, and the Arctic. The weather systems over North America are a result of the interaction between these polar and tropical air masses. As air masses move, they change the weather in the region they move into or leave. The first word in the name of an air mass indicates its origin, specifically whether it formed over land or water, and gives us clues about whether it is dry, formed over land, or humid, formed over water. For example, the word maritime indicates these air masses formed over bodies of water. They are humid or wet due to the water vapor that evaporates from the surface of the water and is incorporated into the air mass. The second word in the name of an air mass gives us information about its temperature based on its geographical origin, whether it is formed near the equator or closer to the poles. When you see the word polar in the name of an air mass, polar air masses are formed closer to the poles. The significantly cooler temperatures of these regions result in the air masses that form near the poles having colder temperatures. When you see the word tropical in the name of an air mass, these air masses originate near the equator. Due to their equatorial origins, they are typically associated with warm air. The warmth directly results from the intense sunlight this region receives year-round. Let's look at some characteristics of the different air masses. First, we'll look at the Arctic air mass. In winter, these are bitter cold and dry. In summer, they are cold and dry. For continental polar, in winter, they are very cold and dry. Notice the word polar means that it's a cold air mass, and continental means it's dry because it didn't form over water, it formed over the continent. And in summer, they are cool and dry. For continental tropical, what do you think the characteristics of that air mass will be? Think about the origins of the 2 parts of the name. So continental tropical will be warm because it's a tropical air mass, and dry because it formed over the continent. In summer, it'll be hot and dry. For maritime polar, what do you think the characteristics will be? It'll be cold because of the word polar in the name, and humid because it formed over bodies of water. The word maritime indicates this. And in the summer, it'll be cool and humid. And for maritime tropical, it'll be warm and humid in winter and hot and humid in the summer. Now let's look at where each air mass formed. For the Arctic, it formed over the Arctic. Continental polar formed over mainland Canada. Continental tropical formed over the southern United States and Mexico. Maritime polar forms over the ocean, Alaska in the west and Greenland in the east. Maritime tropical forms over the Pacific Ocean near Mexico in the west and over the Atlantic Ocean by the Caribbean in the east. A high pressure system may form when an air mass cools over an ocean or a cold region on land. Some high-pressure systems are large enough to cover North America. High-pressure systems often bring clear, dry skies. In the Northern Hemisphere, wind travels clockwise around a center of high pressure. A low-pressure system may form when air masses travel over warm land or warm oceans. As this air mass warms, the lighter air begins to rise. However, the air will slowly cool as it rises, causing water vapor in the air to condense and form clouds or precipitation. This explains why low-pressure systems tend to bring wet weather. Wind travels in a counterclockwise direction around a low-pressure center in the northern hemisphere. The movement of air from an area of high pressure to an area of lower pressure is wind. Now it's time to review. Complete the learning activities in Brightspace.